Okay, Baruch Hashem, chapter 26, verse 12. This verse, it comes from out of nowhere because we were just discussing the mitzvah of the Bikurim, which is the mitzvah of bringing your first fruits that grow from the 7 species up to Jerusalem. And now we have a different mitzvah. Ki Tavo la'aser. That's called Ma'asar Tfuasla B'Shana Shlishit Shna Sama'aser V'Nasatalo Levi L'Ger Yasom Rabanav V'Achu B'Sharach V'Saveyo. So what is going on in this verse? If you go into Beit Knesset and you read this verse, you'll have no idea what it's talking about because you don't know the context. So let me just translate it, and I'll give you the context. Because when you finish taking a tithe, you know what a tithe is? You know what a tithe is? Okay. A tithe is, well, if you look it up in like the dictionary, a tithe is when you give an offering to charity. That's what it means, like colloquially today. But what it means here is that the Jewish people are commanded to give certain gifts. Who do we give the gifts to? We give the gifts to the Kohen. Are you a Kohen? No. Kohen? You give it to the Kohen, that's called Teruma. We give it to the Levi, that's called Meiser. And we give it to the poor person, and that's called Meiser Ani. And also there's a tithe that we're supposed to bring to Jerusalem and eat. These are all the different tithes that we're supposed to do. The way in which we give these tithes is a 6-year cycle. We divide up over 6 years. And I'll explain that in a moment. In the 7th year, you know what happens in the 7th year? 7th year is called the Shemitah year, the sabbatical year. So the 6 years, that the first, we always give a truma. That's the gift to the Kohen. The Kohen always gets. We always give the Meiser, which is the gift to the Levi. Jeff is a Kohen, by the way. And Mordechai is on the Zoom is a Levi, and Rabbi Yosef is on the Zoom is a Kohen. So we always give the truma each one of those 6 years. We give the truma and the Meiser. Where it differs is the first 2 years and the 4th and 5th years we give what's called the secondary tithe, Meiser Sheni, and that is eaten only in Jerusalem. We bring up the fruits to Jerusalem. And in the 3rd and 6th year, we give it to the poor. So now that we have that introduction, what's the background? The background for this pasuk is Ki Tavo Aser. When you finish tithing, meaning you had all these tithes collecting in your house, and when you finished all the tithing of your crops in the 3rd year, so at the end of the 3rd year, and also at the end of the 6th year, you're going to say, basically, it's the equivalent of today to make a 1,001 distinctions of paying your taxes. Said, I paid my tithes, and you've given all the tithes in the 3rd year. That's the year of the tithes. And you gave it to the Levite, the ger. What do we give to the ger? We'll need Rashi to explain it. To the orphan, those are the widows, and the widows, those are the poor people. V'achu b'sharecha, and they have eaten it in your gates, and they're satisfied. So you're basically saying, when you've given all your tithes, you're going to have to say a declaration that I've done what I was commanded to do. Basically, I've given my tithe. That's what your job is to say, that you've given it. So today, do we tithe? Well, do you tithe? So there's a strong custom today to give 10%. Do you ever hear that? They're supposed to give 10% of what you make to charity. Yeah, 1/10. It's not actually the halacha. It's a custom. Technically speaking, you give any amount to charity and fulfill the mitzvah, but there's a very strong custom to give 10% to charity, but you're not supposed to give more than 20%. Unless you're somebody like Peter Thiel who has $23 billion, then you could give as much as you want because he could give away $22.9 billion and he still have enough money that he won't be able to spend it the rest of his life. So, but a person with regular wealth is not supposed to give more than 20%, so they don't impoverish themselves. Okay, so now I'm going to read the Rashi. I gave you this introduction, and now I'll read the Rashi so you understand what basically Rashi was, what the context is, because everything that I said, most of it was informed by Rashi. So let's look at what Rashi says. When you finish tithing your crops in the 3rd year, when you finish setting aside the tithes of the 3rd year, meaning to say, when you set aside all the tithes, Oh, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. I was so worried. I got an update. I have to stop this update. But you know what it is? I'll explain it to you. I'll explain it to you. You want to hear what it is? Okay, fine. Hold on. I do. Do you ever hear of Cameo? So I do cameos for charity. I give all the money to Leket Israel. Somebody wants a bracha from a rabbi. They hire me on Cameo, and I charge like $18. And I don't keep the money. It all goes to Leket Israel. And then I give them a blessing. It's a way to give, for me to give a bracha to somebody's in need. So I get very nervous because usually they're very nice, but sometimes they leave nasty reviews. They're like, we were expecting something funny. And sometimes they ask me to say things which are inappropriate. Like they make like lewd jokes, which I don't want to do. And then they write a nasty review. So somebody just asked me to do something, and I did it just before everybody walked in. And then I said I had a review, and I got nervous, but it said, great job, and he left a $10 tip. Wow, wow, wow. Baruch Hashem! It's going to be a good day for Leket. Yeah, I got a nice review from the stranger. It's very nice. Baruch Hashem. Okay, back to the text. Okay, you see, you're always supposed to tip. Whenever you go out there, you're supposed to tip. Always tip the cab drivers. Always tip. Okay. Well, no, this is for this is for charity. I'll take it. Okay, fine. When you finish tithing in the third year, the sages fixed a time of when you're supposed to stop the tithes, meaning to say, clean out your house from all these collections that you're supposed to give out. And when is that? Be'erev Pesach Shel Shana Revit, on the eve of Pesach of the fourth year. Meaning to say, it's after 3 years, going into the fourth year. When it's the fourth year, on the eve of Pesach, that's when you're supposed to say this. As it says, Michtei Shalosh Shanim Totzi. So at the end of the 3 years, it says here in Nemarka, so basically, so that Rashi goes through a big discussion, but basically that the tithes of the third year are finished on the Pesach of the fourth. And whoever delayed giving his tithes, at this point, the Torah says you've gone too far. Now is when you have to get rid of them from your home. So, like some people, let's give an example, go back to taxes. Some people delay their taxes. I don't even think, I know my taxes have not been paid yet, but I keep delaying them. Not for this past year. The accountant says he's waiting for this. Okay, fine. But you have a time where you can't delay it here. You can't delay it until after Pesach of the fourth year. So that's the halacha here. That we would have no idea what about that time. We're not for Rashi quoting the Midrash. We would not know it. We wouldn't know. This is why we study Rashi. Without Rashi, we wouldn't know how to read the verses. We might be able to get a more appropriate literal reading, but we would not know the rabbinic understanding. Shnat HaMaaser. How are you doing, Aryeh? Baruch Hashem, Boker Tov. Do you know Norai and Matan? Noam? Who's Matan? I don't know. You know Noam? Okay, you'll meet them afterwards. Shnat HaMaaser. We're in chapter 26, verse 12. The year of the tithing. Shana she'eino hegba el ma'aser echad. In the third year, there's only one tithe, which is what? Of the 2 tithes in the year preceded it. The first and the second year of the Shemitah, we have the first tithe, and we have Truma, and we have the second tithe. But in the third year, then we only have Ma'aser Ani. Ma'aser Rishon, but not Ma'aser Sheni, and we have to give Ma'aser Ani. So Rashi goes through the discussion there. Okay, fine. You have to give them, how much do you have to give? How much food, how much tithe do we have to give to the poor? We know that the Kohen, we fulfill our obligation by giving him any amount, but rabbinically speaking, we're supposed to give him either 1/40th, 1/50th, or 1/60th. If we're generous, 1/40th. If we're frugal, 1/60th. How much do we have to give to the poor? So that's interesting. But the word Ma'aser does relate to the word 10%. But Rashi here says, quoting the pasuk, "Tein lam kidei savan." Give them their fill. Give them their fill. You have to fill them up. You can't let them go hungry. From here we learn Ein pochatin ani bagoran pachot mechatzi kaf chitin l'kul. Now, when the poor man comes to you, you have to at least give him enough for like to fill him up for that meal. So that's the minimum that you have to give to the poor person. Okay, so now we're up to the next pasuk. So far we've only done one pasuk, but we did get a tip in the middle, so that's good. And you say before Hashem your God, I have uprooted the kodesh from the house. What's the kodesh? So basically what you have to say now is what's called vidoi meiser, a confession of the tithes. Now, why is it called a confession? There's a very, you're not confessing. You're saying you did it. That's not called a confession. That's an acknowledgement of your having done it correctly. So the best thing on Twitter right now, if anybody wants to go on Twitter and see the best thing out there, is there's a rabbi who I'm a big fan of his scholarship, a huge fan of his scholarship. His name is Rabbi Daniel Z. Feldman, and he puts out very long essays on Twitter. And he discussed this question today, and he said that the word vidoy here does not mean confess; it means to acknowledge and to give thanks. Vidoy meiser. It means so. Therefore, you're giving an acknowledgement, giving thanks that you fulfilled the mitzvah. Who's the first one to give thanks in the Torah? Yeah, let me hear. Yehuda, let me hear.
Leah.
What?
Leah?
Hold on, Rabbi Yosef. I want Yehuda to answer this question. Who's the first one to give thanks? To literally say thank you? Does he say thank you? No, he brings an offering to God. But who's the first one to say, now I will give thanks to God? Who's the first one who says, come on, Yehuda? Who's the first one that said, Hapam odet Hashem, and now I'll give thanks to God because they've given me a fourth son and I will name him Yehuda? Leah. Leah says that.
Thank you.
Judah means to give thanks. That's what Judah means, to give thanks. That's what our friend Yehuda's name means, giving thanks to God. So that's why you're the first, your whole essence, Yehuda, is gratitude. Your whole essence is gratitude. It says, Bi'arti HaKodesh min habayis. He says, you shall say before Hashem your God, Hisvada shenatata masratach. Rashi says, you confess that you've given your sins. But like I said, it's not clear that it really means confess. It really means that you give gratitude that you have given your tithes. That's maybe what it means, that you give gratitude that you've given your tithes. And what do you say? You say, Bi'arti. Kobe, how are you doing? Come on in. Sit next to Noam and Norai. You say, Bi'arti HaKodesh min habayis. You say, I've gotten rid of the Kodesh from the house. What does this mean? This refers to the secondary tithe, the Meiser Sheni. What are you supposed to do with the secondary tithe? Anybody know? What do you do with the Meiser Sheni? Do you remember, Yehuda? What do we do with it? You remember, Jeff? Where do we take it? Who gets it? The secondary tithe is taken to Jerusalem to be eaten. That's where we eat it in Jerusalem. It can be eaten by anyone, but you have to take it to Jerusalem to eat it. Vineta Ravai, and the fruit of a sapling in its fourth year. What kind of tithe is this? So let me explain it. The first 3 years that a tree is planted in the land of Israel, you cannot eat the fruit. It's called orla. But the fourth year, it's called neta ravai. You have to take it to the temple and eat it. So you're saying, I got rid of these things from my house. I brought them. You can't delay it. You have to bring them up to your house, to Jerusalem. So if you had, for some reason, not gone to Jerusalem, you have to go there and bring them up. You have no choice. You have to go up to Jerusalem. These tithes only apply in the land of Israel. So today, they don't apply to us. Like these are mitzvot that depend upon the land. If we had growth in our house today, if you have a fruit tree in your yard, now then, well, the mitzvah of Orla would apply even outside the land of Israel. It's a dispute, but we say it applies, but not rabbinic Orla, but biblical Orla. If you know for sure it's Orla, it applies even outside of Israel. But the other commandments of Truma and Meiser don't apply outside of Israel. So, and you also say, I gave it to the Levite. Which tithe is the Levite get? Anybody know? the Levite gets the first tithe, and also the Gam, and also Rabo Trumot Ubikurim. I've given the Truma and the Bikurim. Who gets the Truma? Who gets the Truma, Jeff? Very good. And who gets the Bikurim, the first fruits? The Kohen gets the first fruits. So that's how you know. And Vilager Asom Vlamanal to the word ger here, they translate here as convert, but it's not clear to me that means a convert here, but it's to the ger, the stranger, the orphan and the widow. These are the poor people, Zemaiser Ani, that have given all these tithes to the poor. Excuse me. Like all of your commandments that you commanded me, Rashi says, Natatim Kisidron. I gave them in their proper order. That's not just okay just to give the tithes, you have to give them in their order. What does it mean to give it in their order? I did not proceed. By the way, no, how did you get here today? Did you walk or you drove?
I walked and then Nora picked me up midway through.
Oh, it's only like a 20-minute walk, right?
Yeah, 20 minutes.
Nice. So he says, Natatim Kisidram, I gave them in their proper order. What does that mean? Lo damti truma bikurim. I didn't put the truma ahead of the mitzvah of the first fruits. That the first thing you do, Kobe, when the first fruits grow, what are you supposed to do? Take like a rubber band or a string and you tie it around. That's the mitzvah of the bikurim. That comes first. And then what's the next thing you're supposed to do? You separate a tithe for the Kohen. Rashi says you have to do it in order. And then you have to separate the tithe for the Levite. And then after that, you have to separate the tithe to bring to Jerusalem, the Meiser Sheni. The Truma is called the first because it's the first one that once the crop has become grain. So you have to go in order. You can't just give the tithes out of order. This is part of the mitzvah. This is part of the mitzvah. You have to give the tithes in order. And then it says, Lo avarti b'mitzvosecha, I did not transgress your commandments, v'lo shachachti, and I did not forget. Rashi says, I did not transgress your commandments. Lo hifrashti mimin al she'eno mino. I didn't separate tithes from one produce from that which is different. Umin hachadash al yashan. Basically, okay, this is actually a very, very important law that gives us a lot of problems today. You can't separate the tithes from something that was taken, tithe already, onto something that was not taken. You can't separate from a new crop onto an old crop. You have to make sure that it was untithed and it was in the same class. And this causes big problems today because let's say we had this problem a few years ago in the land, and when they had the Israeli produce coming into America, and we weren't sure if it was tithed, and then as a consequence, you can't tithe it in America because you're not sure if it was tithed or not. And so then as a consequence, the OU was saying you're not allowed to buy Israeli produce. So basically we're boycotting unintentionally the Israeli produce. So they had to make sure it's kosher in the land. Eitan, good afternoon to you. A big shekoyach to you. Below shachachti, and I did not forget to bless you over the separation of tithes. We have to make a bracha when we separate the tithes. What are we making the bracha? The bracha on separating tithes. Okay.
But you don't have to worry about it if you're not in the land of Israel. Right?
If you're not in the land of Israel, you don't have to do it. But when you go to Israel, you have to do it. Let's say you buy a fruit, you pick up a fruit in the land of Israel, you have to separate a tithe. If you harvest it, for sure. Yeah, you have to separate the tithe. And you can't give it to the Kohen nowadays because we don't know who the Kohanim are. Even though we know you're a Kohen, we don't have what's the word? We can't trace you all the way back to Aaron. We don't have documented.
Right.
So it's what? Yichus.
Yichus is opposed to muchzak.
Yeah. So we have a presumption that you're a Kohen, but not enough for you to take our money. So that's why a lot of Kohanim, when they do the mitzvah of the Pidyon Haben, when they redeem the firstborn son, anybody here firstborn? I know Aryeh is not. Eitan, the firstborn son? And are your parents Kohanim or Levim? No. So then did they do a Pidyon Haben on you? Yeah. So very good. So it's not so common I mean, it's not exceedingly rare. Are you our oldest child, no?
No, I'm the youngest.
Okay, so I know that Nora is also not the oldest, but the point is that the Kohen returns the money because he doesn't want to steal the money if just in case he's not a Kohen. So anyway, okay, next pasuk. I did not eat from this tithe in a state of oni. What's oni? Rashi says, Mikan sha'asar onaid. So this is what's an onaid? Anybody know what an onaid is?
Yeah, the person that buried, right?
A person who's in intense mourning if their loved one has died and they're in basically in those days, it was always the first day because they buried exactly the same day. So that person on the day of the burial is called an onaid. And so that person is in intense mourning. And Meiser Shing, the secondary tithe, which is eaten in Jerusalem, is something of tremendous joy. So it says here, I did not eat from the secondary tithe while I was in mourning. Now, obviously, you didn't eat it because you just got rid of it. But when you brought your tithes to Jerusalem, you didn't eat from it. That's what they're saying. So Rashi says from here, we were in this law. Do you know what other laws you're not allowed to do, Rahman al while you're in Onain? Do you know what other laws that before the body is buried?
You relieve the possible.
Exactly, Jeff. Before the body is buried, when Rahman al one of the close relatives dies, you're not supposed to do any positive commandments. You don't recite blessings, you don't daven, you don't put on the tefillin.
But what you can do, because I was in the Oni, one day, 2 days, I said it to my brother, who's a famous lawyer, said I'm relieved, and I forgot it, of the commandments. He said, Jeff, I mean, that means I can kill you.
No, it's a negative.
Positive commandments.
Yeah, no.
Not really negative.
No, yeah, of course, the negative commandments you still apply, but the positive commandments don't apply. Positive commandments don't apply.
Right.
Yeah, Jeff's brother is a lawyer. Oh, Jeff's brother, plus the memory, was a lawyer, so he was looking for the loophole right away, but no, there's no loophole there. And I did not consume it while I was ritually impure. What does it mean to be ritually impure? What does that mean? Or bitamei, while in a state of ritual impurity. Do you know what ritual impurity is? Eitan, do you know what that means?
You can't perform the Buddha.
Right, exactly. So how does someone become tamei? So there are different ways in which a person becomes. Today, it's a concept that we don't really understand today. Today, we just have our bodies and we're ready to go. But in the time of the temple, it was called ritually impure, was a person who either touched a dead body or touched a dead animal or came in contact with somebody who had some sort of impure thing emanating from their body. So when any of these things touch the truma or the meiser or you can't eat from it. So you're saying, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I was very clear to eat this tithed food in a state of ritual purity. So, okay, and now v'onatati mimenu amet. I did not give of it to a dead body. What do you mean I did not give from it to a dead body? What does that mean? What do you think that means, no, Ryan? I did not give from it to a dead body. What does that mean? So here this means, obviously you can't feed food to a dead body. So what do we think that means? Anybody want to take a guess? What does the Rebbe say, Aryeh? Do you have the chita with you? From the Rebbe?
To make the coffin.
Exactly. Very sharp. That you're not allowed to take the food and turn it into a coffin. Well, how would you make a coffin out of this food? Meaning to say that you would, I guess, sell it to make a coffin, or you could use the crops to make shrouds. You can, I guess, take the fibers. I don't know how they would build a coffin out of it, but I guess they could. I don't know. Maybe the coffin. I don't know how they would do it. There actually is not 100% clear to me. But it's based upon the Sifrei, but he said he didn't use it for the dead. Seems kind of like if I didn't have the Rashi, I would suggest that what it means is that I'm not allowed to Like when they throw a party for the dead, eat it there. You know, a lot of times people, when they have shivas, they throw big parties for food. So that's what I would have thought it meant. But okay, we have to stop here. We have to stop here and daven. Shikoch to everybody on daven mincha now.